What's going on, guys? It's Frito here for your Overwatch. We've got the patch notes for Season 8, which will be releasing tomorrow. The theme of the Battle Pass and season is Battle of the Beasts, where you'll be able to play Mauga for free in a 4v4 PvPvE game mode. Winter Wonderland will come back Tuesday, December 19th, and they're doing something slightly different this season, where playing the themed game modes will give you the opportunity to unlock one free legendary skin of your choice. The new weapon skins are now here. We've got Hard Light, but just for Rhine, Reaper, and Mercy. And just like gold weapons, you can equip it for whatever skin. The next wave of Hero Mastery courses will start on January 2nd next year in a 5-week event featuring a new course each week with new challenges and cosmetic rewards to earn. Courses for Lucio, Mei, Diva, Echo, and Genji. And they talked about this a bit at BlizzCon, but there will be replay bookmarks, a new leaderboard for the Hero Mastery courses that were released in Season 6 to try to incentivize speedrunning and maximizing the score of these courses. You now have the option for different reticles for different weapon modes. For example, the scope of Ana, Ashe, or Widowmaker doesn't have to necessarily be the same reticle that you use when unscoped. The alternate reticle option is also available for Bastion, Lifeweaver, Mercy, and Ramattra. Competitive play got some updates for this season, but keep in mind that this is a transitional season before the big Season 9 overhaul of Ranked. We already know that Season 9 is going to have a soft reset anyway, but at least for Season 8, the major change here is MMR decay only happens at the start of this season, and it's not going to be applied to roles that qualify for a rank. For example, if you won 5 games and got a comp update, you will not decay at the end of the season, but it'll be reset anyway on Season 9. Confusing how this is being explained, to be honest. If a player does not have a rank already who won 3 games and did not get a competitive update, that player will decay at the end of the season. If a player does have a rank, they will only need to play 1 match in the season to keep their rank for the next season. The hero updates. Now, we did cover the blog post discussing these, but there's quite a few extra ones, or at least more explanation now that it's in the patch note form. Maximum ultimate charge preserved on hero swap has been reduced from 25 to 15%. Counter swapping will still be strong in my opinion because of the way the game has been balanced. They could set this to 0 and counter swapping would still be very good in Overwatch 2. They explain here, swapping heroes is fundamental to the gameplay of Overwatch, and this ultimate charge refund mechanic has done a great job of decreasing friction there. It has helped matches feel less one-sided as it functions as a soft comeback mechanic. However, it also helped reinforce the perception that it's almost always an advantage to counter swap upon dying, which ideally isn't always true and requires some consideration due to how powerful ultimate abilities can be. So they're tuning this down to be kind of wait and see what it does. I feel like the community is at both ends of the spectrum with this point. Feeling forced to counter sucks, but at the same time, how else are you going to counter strat the enemy? A lot of people talk about how push can be a broken game mode because the early lead can snowball to win the entire map. The way that doesn't happen, though, is when you counterpick, because you have a lot of time to do so. Doomfist Meteor Strike now regenerates 75 health per second while in the air. And keep in mind that he can hold it for 4 seconds, meaning he can get up to 300 life from this ability now, making Meteor Strike kind of a take a breather for him. To compensate for that, they increased the ultimate cost by 16%, which is insane, to be honest. It might even make him weaker, but more healthy for both his gameplay and those he's playing against. As from his point of view, and this is the dev's intention, is for him to use this ability offensively, to heal while in air and actually go in and kill something. So that will happen, but 16% is an insane nerf. So the amount of time you might be completely starved for an empowered punch, it just got widened. Junker Queen's Scattergun spread has been reduced by 8%. The devs say tightening the spread on Junker Queen's Scattergun will make it more effective at range against small targets and give her slightly more team fight presence before fully committing to getting in close to the enemy team. This buff is nuts. Queen was already fine, but the devs currently are more interested, it seems, to power creep the game than, let's say, nerf everything back. So prepare for more buffs like this. Queen was already a pub stomper character, with a few bad matchups, but a few that she hard rolled. In my head, she's pretty good against Mauga as well. And since we mentioned him, let's look at the new hero to the game. Mauga gets a long list of improvements from the version you remember if you played him on that BlizzCon weekend. Mauga's base health has been rearranged ranged a bit. He still has 500 total, but 150 of it will now be armor. And his head hitbox volume has been reduced by 15%, but still easy to hit the rest of him, of course. Some complicated changes to his primary and secondary fire. The spread for firing both guns has reduced by 15%, which will improve its range. The fire rate multiplier for firing both guns has been reduced from 25% to 0, so it doesn't actually speed up, which is interesting because that will make it more ammo efficient, in fact. And to compensate for that, they improved the damage per shot. It's gone from 4.5 to 5. The fall off is improved as well. It's up to 30 meters now of range. Max ammo goes up 300 to 350, and the movement speed penalty is reduced from 20% to 15% per gun. Overrun, which is probably his most crucial ability to understand how to not feed with him, can now no longer be interrupted by hack, and the damage reduction has been increased from 30 to 50%. That's kind of insane. Okay, so it's a fortify, but you got to use it aggressively somewhat. Keep that in mind. I see a lot of players that are really into canceling overrun. If I'm not mistaken, even as you're doing the final leap, you still get the benefits of that damage reduction and uninterruptibility. So more often than not, I prefer not to cancel overrun and try to go for the slam. Overall, that's how you're going to want to navigate the map to make this character useful, because you need the enemy to whiff into this ability. And I think that's a little misunderstood. I think players aren't maximizing the tanking effect it can have, and now it's really effective. Cardiac Overdrive gets a buff. The lifesteal has increased from 60 to 70%. So they didn't do the damage reduction increase on here, which is what I thought they might do. 70% lifesteal? Are you kidding me? And his weapon got better? Now, I haven't done the math. Maybe the DPS isn't improved, but I have to imagine his weapon is just better. Other brawly type characters love this ability. Reaper and Mauga are now kind of like the same guy. Pop this on both of them. Good luck out brawling that. And his Berserker passive over health conversion rate has increased from 40% to 50%. So a little bit more over shield health from either hitting normal crits or from shooting burning targets that are lit up by your incendiary shots. Ramattra gets a buff where his base health now has 100 base armor, which I'm telling you is going to help him in a lot of matchups. Base armor on a tank is nuts. 30% damage reduction, right? There's a lot of characters he now won't fear nearly as much as he used to. The Void Accelerator, his primary fire with his staff, got improved as well. The damage goes up from 4.5 to 5 per little nanite, and the projectile size has increased from 0.075 to 0.1. Sigma gets a nerf where the regeneration rate on his experimental barrier has been reduced from 100 to 85 health per second. Sounds like a cupcake nerf to me, but I think attacking the barrier is a good place to go because the other aspects of Sig are the more fun parts for him and the enemy team, I feel, as you can usually interact with the rest of it. The whole shield and be a DPS tank thing, though, is a little bit annoying. Winston gets a very strange buff where his Tesla cannon now ignores armor damage reduction. The devs explain this in saying this is a special property for the Tesla cannon intended to increase Winston's effectiveness against other tanks with large armor health pools. He still won't specialize in dealing with these tanks since his single target damage output is so low, but it will be less of an extreme disadvantage. I've seen a lot of high tier players or commentators and analysts hate this change with a burning passion, and I know why, because in coordinated play, Winston players are much better at cleaving in order to farm up primal rage, and it's not so much the tank matchup you should even be concerning yourself with as Winston, because he's already good at fighting backliners and making space for the team. That being said, I think high-level players forget that the personality of Winston for 99% of players is a character you swap off of, one the enemy swap to counter you. I also think there's a lot of characters and situations that this will feel better. This makes Winston less hard countered by characters like Bastion and Brigitte, who have natural armor health themselves. So zapping that down to then dive, that's kind of nuts. Is that how it should work? I don't know. What do we want? Do we want this to be a counterpick game where Winston has to swap for 99% of players, or should he have a fighting chance? I don't have the answer. I also think a character like Orisa, who survived so late in the fight, can be obnoxious for Winston to deal with, despite him having a good matchup against her team. Or Ramattra, or a lot of these other tanks that just survive so late into the fight. I think a lot of the analysts so far talk about the break of the fight, the full neutral. But there's something oppressive about characters that just continuously cycle something that can win matchups later into the fight and forces you to run away in like a 2v2 when you would like to be able to do something meaningful. Now, does that make Winston overpowered? Maybe. Is that better than Orisa being overpowered? Yes. Not saying she is, but obnoxious. Anyway, moving on. Now onto the damage category. Mei's Endothermic Blaster maximum ammo has been reduced from 150 to 120. The devs explain this in saying that it's to reduce the amount of time that Mei can slow an enemy target, compensating for the DPS increase they gave the primary fire a ways ago. Soldier 76's biotic field cooldown has increased from 15 to 18 seconds. They're doing this because they did not want to reduce the effectiveness of biotic field, which got some substantial buffs, I felt. One of those characters that the top 1% of content creators typically do not mention whatsoever, but is an incredibly effective pub stomper character for 99% of players. Just being able to heal yourself was already good, but now that you have a extra healing value that you might be able to give your tank or your backline, Soldier 76 was kind of nutty. Now a bigger window of opportunity to clear him out. Sombra's EMP ability lockout duration has increased from 1.5 to 3 seconds, but the damage on the EMP itself has reduced from a 30% health zap to 25%. The devs say that EMP is more interesting and effective when it's focused on disabling rather than the damage. And I actually agree. I think there's enough abilities in the game now where like EMP locking you out of abilities doesn't feel like the most oppressive thing anyway. With so many escapes and self-sustain or transformation that you can do to even buffer yourself from the EMP, I don't mind this change considering how difficult it actually is to play Sombra as it was in the previous season. Torbjorn's getting his overload health reverted for whatever reason from 75 back to 100 again, and the devs say the health decrease on overload severely impacted Torbjorn's overall effectiveness, so we're reverting that change. I don't like answers like this because they don't know the reason exactly why his effectiveness went down. What else changed in the entire game? Like so many things. Tracer's pulse pistol's damage has been increased from 5.5 to 6. They claim that it was previously adjusted due to a couple of bugs, with pulse pistol's fall off range and spread being much better than they should have been. But now those things are fixed, but she's been really struggling up against the support characters and frankly just everything. Fights off Tracer pretty well. Now Tracer shoots 2 shots at once, so it used to be 11 total, now 12. A full 1 clip was 220 to the body, now 240, remembering you can headshot as well. But this damage really adds up either over time when building up Pulse Bomb, but especially on the break points of different characters, particularly ones that are either hard for her to kill or ones like, let's say, Zen, who are already easy for her to kill in theory, but will extend the range that she'll be effective against them. Doesn't change one of her biggest weaknesses, though, in the fact that so many of the supports are effective at shooting back at her. Onto the support changes. Baptiste's biotic launcher primary fire ammo has reduced from 45 to 36. The devs say Baptiste has a high amount of sustained damage in addition to his various survival tools. We would prefer to keep his long cooldown abilities feeling impactful, so we're going to be pulling back on some of the damage potential here. Brigitte's whip shot damage has reduced from 80 to 70. This changes a revert to where it was before, and the devs explain this in saying Brigitte ended up being the best performing support hero in the game by a fair margin since the last patch. It's likely a result of more than just the damage breakpoint change that she received, but it was a significant increase to her offense, so we're reverting it and we'll be continuing to evaluate further. I find this interesting because I see my teammates often not realize the target priority that Brig should have, which is if she's in front, you've got to punish her. Because if you don't, she's going to out-heal everything. But because of how survivable supports are as a concept, I think a lot of pressure has been alleviated off of them, so I guess Brig's been surviving and racking up insane stats across the ranks, and also having damage like this on whip shot maybe was a contributing factor. I kind of doubt it though. Kiriko gets some changes. The healing of Fuda projectile speed has increased from 14 to 18 meters per second, making her heal even better, but a bit of a rework to protection Suzu, where the invulnerability duration is reduced from 0.85 to 0.65 seconds, but the healing explosion gets a big buff to 80 health. The devs say reducing the production Suzu's invulnerability time further will help it feel less frustrating to play against, but still enable it to have big playmaking moments, although with a stricter timing requirement. To counterbalance that power loss, we're making Kiriko's healing more reliable. Yeah, no kidding, the healing's more reliable. Remember, Suzu hits an AoE, so now that's 80 health per target. And if Fuda's more reliable, or Zippy, let's say, gets to the target faster, I don't know, this might be a buff? The only way this isn't a buff is when you are really missing that period of invulnerability, that few fractions of a second that they shaved off it. Like the enemy Queen ult is charging up, you protection Suzu early, but it ends up saving your whole team in the timing window that you're invulnerable anyway, as opposed to waiting afterwards. Or against something that's an explosion, like a Diva Bomb, harder to time perfectly, but still possible. You can still do it. Still gonna do the same thing. It's just less forgiving on the window of time. So I honestly think just a buff, considering there's so much value to using Suzu to cleanse an effect with no timing really required. A hack or anti-nade, just a straight buff against those things. Mercy's Valkyrie no longer disconnects Cadis' staff from its target. This is a quality of life improvement that I know Mercy players have been talking about for a long time. Basically now, when you pop Valkyrie as an ultimate, you'll still be able to continuously keep the staff on the target you're giving it to without any delay. That's everything for the patch notes, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave it a like, and don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to actually get notified when our videos come out. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.